Hello, I'm Scott Ryden. I serve as Decatur City Manager, and week after week, it's my pleasure to bring you information about what's going on with your city government. We've had some very nice spring weather the last couple of days. Now, I don't think that winter is quite done with us, but I think we can see spring from where we're at. And so many of us, our thoughts turn to spring cleaning and dealing with some of those things that might have accumulated over the winter months in our garages or in our basements, or in some cases out in our yards, and they were there for wintertime. So spring is coming, and so we certainly want to encourage you to clean up your yards whenever you can. The City Council has authorized, since last year, additional funds for additional staff for our code enforcement. It'll come as no surprise to you that there are certain neighborhoods, certainly not all of them, but certain neighborhoods where debris and junk really is sitting out in yards, and it's in violation of local ordinances, and in general contributes to a bad appearance for the neighborhood, and can even have the effect of bringing down property values. We don't want to see that. Your adjoining property owners, your neighbors, don't want to see that. So we plan to step up enforcement when spring comes around. But we've also provided some of the tools to help you out. The community cleanup events that the city has sponsored here at the Decatur Civic Center will continue. And there are other special cleanup events that are hosted by the county as well. Now, no discussion of garbage would be complete without a discussion about some of the problems that the private waste haulers have had here in Decatur. The city of Decatur does not provide garbage service. We have simply adopted an ordinance that regulates the private haulers who do. The waste collection and disposal business, not just in Decatur, but throughout North America, is undergoing major changes. And just in the last few years, the number of private haulers who serve the Decatur market has decreased. The cost of the equipment, the cost of the landfills, given some of the environmental regulations they have to comply with, makes it very difficult for small operators to continue, although small operators are continuing to provide services here in Decatur. But just in the last 3 years, the number of haulers has gone from 9 to 6, and there may be additional consolidation. Waste Management has been one of those haulers for many years, but they became the hauler for nearly 80% of residential areas in those residential buildings where the 6 units or less, because they acquired Advanced Disposal. Advanced Disposal was the 4th largest company in the United States, and it was absorbed by Waste Management, who is the largest in North America. Waste Management has had some serious logistic problems in absorbing that. They have had manpower shortages. They haven't been able to get all the personnel that they need, and the turnover in staff that they have experienced has resulted in people not knowing some of the idiosyncrasies of a route. A person who might have special pickup at their house rather than out on the curb, or some other special features about a route that will be known by people who are the regular drivers, and there's been a lot of turnover. And this has resulted in a lot of complaints that we've received here at the city government, even though we don't provide the waste service. Because we have the ordinance that regulates the private haulers who do provide that service, we get those calls. We have met with Waste Management. We have required that they make certain rebates and credits available when customers don't receive the trash pickup that they're supposed to get. We've also required that they do additional public information explaining in a more detailed way, and in sometimes reaching out by special text to neighborhoods if there's going to be a problem with their pickup. The city of Decatur has fined Waste Management and is examining other ways to compel them to observe the ordinances. We have limited means that wouldn't be just more disruptive. The Waste Management and some of their colleagues in the waste management business have been very effective over the years at lobbying the Illinois General Assembly for special interest legislation that protects them from a city like Decatur taking certain sections of their routes away if they can't perform properly. So we have very limited options. We are examining all the ways that we can force compliance, but this isn't so much about a battle between the city and Waste Management. At the end of the day, we want all of our citizens to have good trash pickup, good recycling services, good yard waste services, and so forth. And as a result of this consolidation, as a result of some of these problems, mostly because of manpower issues that Waste Management has had, we've discovered that the section of city code that governs all of this needs to be updated. So sometime later this spring, I don't have a specific date yet, the City Council will give some thought to how can we amend the ordinances so we can improve the services, make them as economical as possible for our citizens, and deal with some of these service issues that Waste Management has not been able to address with their customers. So please know that your mayor and city council, even though this is a difficult problem that the city is going through right now, Waste Management is on notice. I think they're trying to fix the problem, not as rapidly as we want them to do so, but that the mayor and city council, through a study session and additional action at a city council meeting, will be taking further action to try to improve the overall situation. Turning for a second to one of the major, what was expected to be one of the major construction projects in 2022, the Brush College Road separation project there at East Ferries Parkway. This project was scheduled for a March letting, for a January bid letting, and it was included on the state of Illinois' bid letting. However, the bids came in more than $16.5 million over the engineer's estimate. This was a very serious setback because we had been working for years on making sure that we had the right numbers in place, that we had good numbers, and that we had revenues to pay for the project based on all of those. The cost of structural steel, the cost add-ons because of supply chain, problems with regard to mobilization, dealing with 2 Class 1 railroads on site and other problems led to the fact that the project is more than $16.5 million over our estimate. The city of Decatur is not willing to pay an additional $16.5 million for this project. So to a certain extent, it's sort of back to the drawing board. What back to the drawing board really means when we're talking about the Brush College Road project, a $50 million project, is 2 things. The first is we're going back to the grant sources, the state and federal agencies we've been working with who are paying for more than 90% of the project to get additional money from them. That's going to require additional time and additional submittals by the city. We're also working with the contractors to find out if there's ways that we could make revisions to the plans and specs and put it back on a bid letting later this spring or at the very latest early in the summertime to bid it again and try to get that gap down significantly. Those 2 things will be going on simultaneously, but the end result is still the same, and that is the project has been delayed. Whether it's delayed for 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, it's still too early to tell. But all of the preparations that we have made with the state and with the railroads for that project have been put temporarily on hold. We still expect to proceed with the project, but we're simply not willing to proceed with the project at such a higher cost. So we have to find a way to make sure that the project proceeds, but with the comparatively small amount of cost that the city had into it. Based on our estimates, the city was only going to pay between 6 and 7% of the total project cost. And we're going to make sure that we stay within those financial parameters. As many of you know, I wasn't wearing a mask today because Governor Pritzker decided that beginning March 1st, indoor mask requirement was lifted. This certainly reflects a trend nationwide as we try to return to normal. But even though we're all trying to return to normal and people have realized that's the right thing to do because lockdowns and things that related to that only damage the economy and mental health and so forth, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't still be aware and still very attentive to public health. There's still ways that we can do social distancing and minimize large groups. Just take the normal common sense precautions to make sure that we all stay safe. We can get back to normal and still be safe. So thanks for doing that. I've certainly seen that around town and encourage you to do that. Thank you again for the feedback that you provide that helps us in the way that we do our government work for you better. I'll see you again next week.